Hello and welcome to the Integrated Rehab and Performance Podcast. My name is Dr. Nick Curtis, and I'm running the show here at the Integrated Rehab and Performance Center. We have another golf episode for you today. We are talking about TPIs, or Titleist Performance Institute. We're talking about their shoulder 90-90 test, a very important test for understanding whether or not our shoulder joint, as well as our entire shoulder complex, is capable of reaching the positions necessary for the golf swing, that being in the static golf positions like address and the top of the backswing, but also the stability to maintain these positions and reach these certain positions in a violent swing action, right? So that's some of the utility of the test. We will describe what it looks like, and then we will talk a little bit about the statistics and then how we like to treat it here at the Integrated Rehab and Performance Center when we find golfers that are struggling to hit the mark on these tests so that they can use their swing drills and their instructions to actually benefit them and get some sincere and consistent progress with their golf swing and their golf performance. Because if we are not able to achieve these positions, no matter how many drills we're given to try to make certain changes, the compensations are just far too great if we are mimicking positions that our body won't want to get into. The compensations come from all over the place, and they might be hard to see, but they're there, right? And that's what makes some of these changes so hard to consistently maintain, right? So let's take a look at the shoulder 90-90 test. All right, so this is the starting position for the test. We're standing upright. We'll start with our elbows at the shoulder height, our shoulders at 90 degrees, and our palms facing the ground, like you can see. And from here, we're just trying to see how far back we can rotate one arm without having to drop the elbows down or change our spine angle, right? And so if we have a friend watching or we're taking a video, we want this arm angle to surpass our spine angle, right? So we see that the spine is kind of straight up. This arm is making it there, right? You can see that it's going right about where the ears, or even a little bit past. Tough to tell with the camera angle. But we can kind of break this down into a couple different components. So in this case, I'd say he's just slightly past the spine angle, which is definitely a passing mark, right? That's what we want. We could have it at the spine angle, which is kind of borderline. That's where it might cover the ear if you're looking directly from the side. And then the first really kind of failing mark is where it's between the ear and the nose, right? Again, we'll be standing straight up. And then if it's covering the nose, we know we definitely are lacking external rotation here at the shoulder. And if it's below the nose, right, so that angle never quite made it past the nose, so maybe somewhere like here, right, this is where it would be covering the nose, and say he had to stop there, then we definitely need to work on this. Same thing if it ended up being right about there. But he gets a little bit further and past. We want to make sure that elbow doesn't shoot forward or backward or anything like that, right? So just doing a good job of being very strict with this test. And that is the first part of the test, right? So we have a couple different ways to measure it. Now going forward, we'll do the same thing, but in kind of this golf position, right? So now we're in the golf posture. We're bent at the waist here, and then we're going to do the same exact thing. And again, we're just looking to break the spine angle there. So here we can see he's directly in line with the spine. That looks pretty good. He goes even a little bit past. And yeah, so he does a pretty good job of passing this test. And again, we'd look for those same marks where does he go past the ear? Does he cover the ear? Is he between the ear and the nose? Cover the nose? Or does he not even make it to the nose, right? So a couple important marks there. When we are doing it in this position, we put a little bit more stress on the scapula they're in a more protracted state, which is more of a golf specific position, right? So we're looking strictly at mobility with the first one. And then here we're looking very a little bit more specific with can the scapula come out and protract like we would expect during a golf swing or a setup, and can they maintain and create this mobility while in that position, right, which is really important for golf. All right, now let's take a look at the data that TPI has collected when they were measuring this test. First, we were looking at PGA Tour players, and we can see that not a lot of players have any issues not reaching the nose in that first stand-up example. And then 0 players out of the 40 that were measured had any issue getting or covering the nose. And then a couple players had some issues in between that nose and that ear range, right? But not very many. They would definitely probably take a look at this test and try to find ways to improve their shoulder mobility. And then again, the bulk were in that good range of the they met the ear or they went past the ear. Okay, so you can see that at that 90 to 120 degree range there. Now, if we look at some amateurs, and they measured a whole bunch of them, they measured 18,540. We can see still not very many people not making it to the nose, right? Only 3%, but probably a surgery in their history or something like that, where that's something we're going to try to improve. They might be limited in how many improvements they can make there, but we can definitely still get that better no matter the circumstances. And again, a lot more players here in this case that have issues not quite reaching that 90 degree mark. And a lot of these people will be potentially you, right? Just your average golfer who hasn't worked on any sort of shoulder mobility before. All right, so this is telling us this is an important test to do with your average golfer to make sure that we're not missing any low-hanging fruit here. Now, if we go to start coming up with ways to adjust this, well, first let's just deal straight with shoulder mobility, right? So here we're doing a banded shoulder mobility drill. We have that band up as high in the arm as we can, pulling pretty aggressively outward towards the side, and now we're just working in deflection and extension and even a little adduction where that shoulder comes across the chest there. A very important motion, especially that shoulder coming across the chest. A lot of people lack the ability to get appropriate range of motion in that particular plane, right? So that's something we certainly want to work on. We want to check and start working into from the ground up, right? Let's get that shoulder mobility, access to this range of motion improved, and then we can start working on the stability. Now, a different variation of this where we're just coming straight overhead, right? So we have the arm up overhead. We're doing it actively in this case, and then now I'm going to do it passively where I just kind of push or pull my arm back, and we let all the muscles in the left arm start to relax so that that band can pull that shoulder into the socket a little bit. Right. And again, just a couple different variations, now pulling across the chest. There's a lot of different variations we can do for this. Check it out on the YouTube channel. There'll be more description through there, and I'll try to throw all the names of these exercises into the description as well. All right, so here we're doing a scap mobility drill where we're laying on our back. First thing we want to do is make sure we are pulling our rib cage down, right? So I have a video walking us through that, where when we breathe out slowly through the mouth, we should feel our abs start to turn on a little bit, especially as we push every last bit of air out. From there, you're going to get some tension in the core, especially your obliques. I want you to maintain that tension as you breathe back in through your nose, and that's what I want you to think about, what's happening down here at the ribs in this one. Right, so we're holding those ribs down tight, and then we let our scaps pull out towards the sides and up towards the ceiling. So again, you're thinking about like pushing your elbows towards the top corners of the room, and that kind of pulls the scapula out with it. Right, and then from here, we're just working on some mobility of that scapula, always maintaining some pull of those scapula out towards the side, and again, keeping those ribs tight and pulled down with our core. Again, YouTube channel will have a descriptive video of how we do that. Now we're working on that shoulder kind of adduction, right, to where it's coming across our body again, as well as some internal rotation of the shoulder. We are pinning our thumb side of the palm down towards the wall, and then we are moving our body around our arm, which is the same thing as moving the arm around our body, right? And we're always maintaining a bent elbow in this drill. That's very important. And there's a couple different variations as you can see here. But again, what we're working on here is shoulder mobility as well as a little bit of that stability and motor control as we control this motion. And again, we're always keeping this elbow a little bit bent as we come down and as we come back up. Now here, a really great exercise, or it's kind of a complex of exercises. This is the first exercise in it. We're doing 10 reps, slow reps of each exercise. The first one is where we just have our arms out towards our sides, and then we just raise them up off the ground. We'll do 10 of those, and then from here, with our elbows bent, we're doing some external rotation there. Again, 10 of those with a second hold at the top. Now we're doing something similar, but bringing the whole arm off the ground. And then the last one, we're pushing up overhead, just like that. And again, hold for a second at the top of each of these and do 10 to 12 of them nice and slow. And you will get those scaps and the shoulder blades working together again to create stability and mobility at that shoulder joint. Okay, so there's just a handful of exercises and mobility drills that we might consider for an athlete or a golfer who has failed that shoulder 90-90 test and needs a little bit of work to reach those positions without needing to compensate for it, right? And that is the key to all this, is making sure that we are able to achieve these positions so that when a golf instructor or the YouTube right, a YouTube video is asking you, hey, try putting your elbow here, do this with your hands, try to get to this feeling in the top of your backswing, right, or hold a club cover under your elbow, tight to your body, but also get into this position with the rest of your body, right? We need to make sure that the rest of the body is able to actually do that. Otherwise, you might find some issues like you're losing your posture as you come up out of that address and you go into your backswing, right? If your shoulders can't reach that level of external rotation, well, if you want to mimic what the golf video is telling you to do at the shoulders, the way that you're doing that, and you might not realize it, is you are extending at your low back, your hips are shooting forward, so you're losing your hinge there, and then your knees are straightening up and you're standing up tall, right? So now you've mimicked that positioning in the golf video, but you've lost the rest of your positioning elsewhere and you might not even quite know it, or you have to crank and work so hard to get to that position that it would never be sustainable. And this has a lot to do with the inconsistencies, right? Where you might get a new video or a cue or a tip and maybe it starts to work for a little bit, maybe for a couple swings or even a couple holes, but then inevitably, of course, we lose it and we can't apply that same trick the next round for whatever reason, right? We can never get consistent improvements, and a lot of that is because we were never really able to apply that cue or swing tip in the first place, because we may have been able to mimic that position in one part, but the rest of our body had to compensate so much for it to happen that we'll never be able to make all those changes during the swing that are all these little compensations that are happening without you really knowing it, right? So if we can get the body biomechanically able to reach all these golf specific positions and movements, then your swing drills will be 100 times more effective and you'll be able to actually create consistent and efficient changes to your golf swing and improve your score. So thank you for listening to this golf episode on the shoulder 90-90 test. There's more coming. We have some more just general podcast episodes coming out where we might be talking about just general exercise and fitness, some general rehab concepts, and a lot of nutrition stuff coming your way too, as well as some functional medicine stuff too, right? So we're looking at micronutrients and macronutrients, hydration, things like that, and different supplements and tests that we can do and things like that, right? So excited to have that. Thanks for sticking with me here this week. We'll see you next week. Thanks.